Hello. So
Um,
this is an episode of the Hull Yes podcast. I haven't done an episode in about a year, but you, Casey, are the first person I would want if I was going to relaunch it. The first person I'd want to bring in because you are a legend on the Hull scene. Everybody loves you. You're a talented musician. You're in about 60 bands. You help everybody out. You're just a good dude, and I think you are. I've often said this in public and in private. I think you are the main guy, the stalwart of Hull's alternative scene. If you didn't exist, then
I think
it wouldn't exist.
you're too nice,
So
man. You are.
well, no, it's the truth, man. It's the truth. For those that don't know, if nobody's watched an episode of this before, what we do is we get people on here to talk about how great Hull is and talk about what the scene is like and what the people's favorite places are. And in Casey, I know that you know a lot of people in a lot of places. So the first question, what I'll do is I'll ask the difficult questions around the music scene in a
Yeah,
little
cool.
bit, and I'm going to get you to pick your favorite bands and all that. So we'll just start prepping your brain for that because I know that's a big question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot. But yeah, in the meantime, I mean, you're sat now doing this in ground, for example. What is
Oh
your
yeah.
favorite place to go in Hull and why? Why do you give me like one or two examples of places that you love in Hull to go and visit, go and spend time, and why?
Favorite place, hands down, absolutely has to be the Adolphi Club, and anyone that's ever been will know why. It's a truly magical place. It honestly changed my life. Finding that place, realizing that there was somewhere right on my doorstep that has played host to many a legendary band now, bands that have gone on and still achieve international success, household names. I will go through the extensive list right now, but the fact that this tiny little, essentially converted house down De Grey Street, off of a street that otherwise gets a bit of a bad rep, Beverly Road. It blew my mind that so much creativity was going on there. That such a beautiful community exists there. Um, such a safe space, such a creative haven. It's hands down just yeah, my favorite place to be. It's home from home, really.
Yeah, you part of the furniture there, and of course, I know that you've formed bands, you've met bands, you've lived and blood, sweat, and tears in that venue, Casey. You've
Oh
you've
yeah,
you've spent absolutely.
yeah, probably literally all of that. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Blood, sweat, and tears, definitely. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, favorite place to eat in Hull and why?
Ooh, see that it obviously changes a lot. It depends what I fancy that day. But just lately I can't get enough of Cafe Gelato. I know there's like two or three of them, but man, their halloumi salads, you know, they're throwing in like pomegranate and all this, and it's when I need a good meal, uh, maybe fancy something healthy, but that isn't going to be like a chore to eat, something that's actually like really healthy, really delicious. It's great, and then I can ruin that by getting cake afterwards immediately, and their cake is incredible.
Oh,
So,
I love the cake. I see. I'm the opposite. I only go there for the cake, and it's not.
all
There's not
right.
not because they don't have wonderful, actual healthy food. It's just like they do this wonderful cookie dough, bueno cookie dough cake that
I know the one, yeah,
I can taste it right now.
yeah,
All of my health issues get like amplified every time I eat that cake, but it's so good. So it's so worth it.
oh
Yeah,
man,
it's
yeah.
it's it's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, this is a little bit of a different one. Some of your favorite memories associated with the city of Hull and or its people.
Oh, favorite memories. Yeah, well, oh God, that's such a big one.
We can come
I
back to that one
always,
if you want.
well, I always remember. I'm a huge fan of Life, obviously a very successful whole band, and a band that has been making waves for literally years now. They only get better with every album. They've just announced that they're hard at work on the fourth album. You know, um, they've got some shows coming up. I'm going to try and make the one in Hebden Bridge at the Trades Club. It'd be amazing to see them there. But something that always sticks with me is that band, and seeing that band in an early incarnation with like, uh, only two of the sort of founding members that are in the band now, playing not just at the Adelphi, but playing at the Sesh back when it was at Linnet and Lark, like tiny little place, and playing at places like Blue Lamp to like 10 people, and you'd never believe that. And that's like, the support band, me, the sound guy. Do you know what I mean? And then, so coming back to the favorite memory bit, I remember seeing them playing bigger and bigger shows, getting their album out, their debut album, which was awesome and really well received. And I remember one year seeing them, and this will tell you how bad my memory is, because I don't remember exactly what year, and I don't remember if it was Freedom Festival or Humber Street Sesh. It was one of the two. And they came out off the back of, I don't know if it was after just their debut EP or the debut album, but they came out and it was a huge crowd. It was a really good festival slot, and there's like hundreds of people, like just really psyched to see them. And Mez steps out. All right, here's a new song, and they play a new song. All right, here's another new song, and they play another new song, and like they were both great. All right, let's play another new song, and it was new again, and it was fantastic. And I'm like, okay, I knew that I was witnessing something really special, because I'm like, okay, this band has been playing the local circuit and doing bits out of town at that point, obviously, but like they've achieved a certain level of local success that I'd seen bands. This is the crucial point. I'd seen bands get there before and then slowly lose momentum and die off, unfortunately. It's sad when that happens, but it happens. But I realized right there in that moment, they basically played an entire set of brand new material to a festival crowd, risky move, in your hometown, in front of your audience that knows your stuff, that's already been well received, and everything was great. Like every tune was amazing, and everyone was jumping about, and it was like everything was an instant hit. And that is a great memory for me, because it's one of those moments in life where you're backing the right horse, and obviously I've got some good mates in the band as well, so it was just really great to see them doing so well, but also letting that momentum continue and riding that. It was just like a really good memory, and it's always one that I like to think back to.
Yeah, a lot of people talk when we do this podcast. A lot of people talk about Life as a really standout band. But for you yourself, as someone that books festivals, Few Vest, as someone that's been in again so many bands over the years in Hull and been able to tour the country. What for you yourself? You obviously reflected on a beautiful memory there for Life, but for you yourself as a musician in Hull, particularly if you can focus on the Hull as a city, what would be your favorite musical memory for yourself as a promoter, as a musician, that you remember about, being part of the scene? Maybe it's playing a show, maybe it's being at a gig.
I always remember, in terms of like playing myself, playing shows, Bedsit CP launch at Dive was a little bit crazy, because it's only like an 80 cap venue, but we were doing this thing where in an age where physical media is dying, we were like, all right, it's £5 a ticket, but you get the CD. And we were like, are people going to be bothered? You know what I mean? It was like a Friday or Saturday night with plenty of other stuff going on, and we're thinking like, oh, it'd be nice to half fill it, because I think we'd already maybe played a couple support slots at Dive, and it had been like busy, and some of those were like free entry shows and that. But we're like, okay, we're booking the venue out ourselves, and put in like a door price on to maybe try and make some money back for the CDs. And it sold out. And it was like before even the first support band played, the bouncers were having to turn people away, and we were like, shit, yeah, we didn't see this coming. And again, to do that in a space where, like, again, we'd played Dive a couple of times at that point, but again, Adelphi, not just for me, but for the band, is very much like our spiritual home. And it's kind of like, you know, that's like the proving ground sort of thing. You know, you earn your wings there.
Of course,
And
yeah.
we really weren't sure how it was going to go down. Yeah, like launching our EP at like another venue, we knew it'd do all right, but like all of a sudden it was like, where'd all these people come from? And then we played like probably one of the best shows we've ever played, in my opinion. You know, did about an hour. Our last song is, it sort of devolves into a bit of a jam that just went on and on and on, and everybody's crowd surfing,
Yeah.
like ceiling fixtures are getting knocked about,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
yeah, just a great memory for me.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you know, then there's things like back at the Warren. I remember, this is something I think too whenever I'm in the studio. It was like a piece of advice that I saw from, it was actually, I was watching one of these Spotify series that they do, you know, interviewing musicians, and like one of them had said, like, whenever you're struggling in the studio, think back to your favorite moment in the studio. And this is one that I think of back at the Warren, and back at my days, like early on volunteering with Warren Records, but also playing with an old band. In the Warren studio, we tracked the drums, but with like ghost tracks, you know, and hadn't written a click track or anything like that. And this was at a point where, again, we didn't have much studio experience. We're still learning the ropes. And then I had to go in and do my actual guitar track on top, and forgot to ask for the ghost track. And there was a long, extensive bit where I had to play for like quite a while on my own, keeping timing just in my head, and praying that like it was literally just the guitar, praying that the drums and bass dropped in at the exact moment. I remember getting to the end of that section, and I got my headphones on, and right as I finished that last note, they dropped in exactly where it was supposed to be. And it was just, it felt like, yeah, just again, like riding that wave. Like it was a moment that felt, you know, like it was meant to be, sort of thing. I got it down in one take.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it's just great.
Yeah.
But then, you know, that's another beautiful thing about Hull. Like at that point, I was probably in my early 20s, and the Warren Centre, you know, Warren Young People's Centre, what, you know, a lot of places don't have anything like that. You know, they might have youth centres, but Warren is distinctly different as a young people's centre. It can continue to fund and provide facilities and projects for people into like their late teens, early 20s. And, you know, especially for creatives, that's a really important thing, like such an important thing. Just as much as I tell people I couldn't be doing what I do today without the Adelphi, I can say the same just as much for the Warren. Like I wouldn't have got my start if it weren't for the Warren. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, it's an
And a lot of
incredible
people can
resource.
say the same.
Yeah, incredible resource. Absolutely. It was one of the reasons I came back to Hull, was to do some work with the Warren, and I got to do that. So, yeah, I mean, you know, before I ask you the difficult questions, and thank you so much as well, Casey. This is exactly why I wanted to get you on here, because I do think you've got so much love for the scene and so much love for places in Hull. Before
Yeah,
I go back to asking you for questions specific to Hull, I'm going to ask you for a random fact just to prepare you. I'm going to
oh,
ask you to pick your favourite bands. So just to prepare you before that,
is
because
that whole band?
favorite
Whole
whole
band.
bands. Yeah, I'm gonna get you in trouble. You see,
Okay.
that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking you the question. I'm gonna get you in trouble with that, with the scene. But while I've got you, I do think it's important, because I do think you should go on record as one of the most important people for the music scene in this city, and possibly regionally as well, because I do believe your heart and soul is intertwined with the scene. If you were to, if somebody years from now catches this in whatever format, and is looking for advice on how to break out. Maybe they're coming from Hull or they're coming from the surrounding areas and they think, how do I do this? How do I get to where life is? How do I get to where Bedsit is? Obviously, your band has thousands of streams and has, toured the country and been listened to in different parts of the world. What would be your advice then for any young musician coming out of Hull who wants to do well and wants to, get out of the city and just play music to different places, for example, as you have been able to do?
I think my main piece of advice is don't expect it to come right away. Honestly, it's a slog, You've got to live and breathe it, but you got to live and breathe it for years you really start before you really start seeing the fruits of your labors sometimes, early on, I would encourage bands specifically to try and get involved in the promotion side of things as early as they can themselves. Like, I'm talking the DIY route rather than working for promoters. Obviously, your first few shows, play with promoters, don't get me wrong. If they treat you right, go back. If they don't treat you right, don't keep going back because, they'll underpay you or not pay you. And we don't have to get into all that. But like when someone treats you right, take note of it and try and do them favors and yeah, just help each other out. There's that saying like what's good for the scene is good for me, and I very much live by that. A lot of the times, I go out my way to do things that again, I'm going out of my way and I'm putting a lot of time and effort into it, maybe for no financial reward, or maybe I'm putting a big show together that like, my band's not on the bill, but so what? You know what I mean? It's giving a good platform to a whole bunch of bands that I love, and all right, we'll play with them down the line. I just think keep doing what you believe in, and like the little setbacks will happen. I had one recently, and this is something I made note of because I'd like to talk about this in terms of something that I love about Hull. Um, I've been promoting in Hull for over 10 years, like mainly at the Adelphi, but also, I dive occasionally in other little places. And in all that time, I've lost money on 3 shows in that entire time. So I've done okay. Do you know what I mean? Making sure that I pay the bands and putting some money aside for the next one and for the venue hire and this, that, the other. But the third time was very recently. It was actually Feud Fest 4. And I was a bit weary about coming on a podcast and being like, oh yeah, we had a bit of a bad moment recently. But I think it's important to talk about it because it comes back around to what I love about Hull, what I love about this city. I guess I'd got carried away with booking these all day festivals. I mean, for anyone that don't know, sorry, Feud Fest is I've been doing them every 3 months at the Adelphi Club. And it's just a whole day of underground, unsigned bands, mostly regional, sometimes from a bit further afield. And they've all done great. You've played a couple yourself, and it's been amazing having you there. And they've all done brilliantly until this last one, where, yeah, we didn't even get over the line in terms of paying the venue hire. And I'm like, oh no, I've got all these bands to pay. And again, I think it's a case of I've got ahead of myself. The day festivals have worked, and I should have known. Like any gig in winter is always going to be tough. The time of year, people have less money, less time because they're doing family stuff. They've got less energy. It's all of these factors come into it. And I was sat there thinking, oh no, I'm making excuses for myself. But this is what I love about Hull. Everyone around me sat there and said the same thing, and everyone was totally cool with it. Bands were like, just telling me like, bro, just give us another show. We've loved playing. The vibe has been amazing. Everyone that we've played to has really enjoyed it. A lot of these acts I hadn't worked with before as well. Some I had multiple times, so that was nice. But the fact that they were just all so cool with it, and they all sold merch at the end of the day, and were perfectly happy just to have a good show because, and that's it. Yeah, I think another important piece of advice for like younger people starting out in the music industry, whether they're playing, whether they're promoting, whatever. It's your measure of success. That was the third time in over 10 years I haven't been able to cover venue hire. And that felt really, really bad, and then being unable to pay the bands because I'm paying the venue out of my pocket. That felt really, really bad. But 3 times in 10 years, that's all right. And it's the first time that I got to the point where it was actually a worry about the venue hire. Normally it's just like, oh, how am I going to pay the bands after paying the venue? But the
That's
fact that
pretty cool,
everyone was
man.
just really, really cool with it and like understanding
Yeah.
and just like, most of them, as I was explaining to them why, okay, I think I've dropped the ball with this one. Maybe it was a bad idea. They were agreeing and sort of yes-anding all the reasons. Like, it's winter. We've had way worse shows than this in winter. We've played to nobody. Like, we've played all year round to nobody, and yet we've come here and played a really good show. All right, not a profitable show, might not be taking much money away, but like, we've had a great time. There were people in that bought merch. And so again, it's like, it's how you measure the success. That show was a success in that sense. It's just, you learn from your mistakes as well. It was a mistake in one sense, a success in another. So it's like, how do I navigate that moving forward? Maybe just stick to
Absolutely.
regular shows in winter now, not all day.
Well, I mean, I
People don't
think
have the appetite for it. Like Hull normally does. Like Hull loves a whole bunch of bands. And one day, I mean, look at something like Hunger Street Sesh. People have the appetite for it, but not mid-December.
well, a learning curve, and it's interesting, because
Exactly.
you and I have talked about this off record. I think, three times in 10 years, man. I mean, it's just a testament to how much people love what you do and how invested
Well,
people
thank you.
are. I think you've had sometimes you and I have talked about it, and obviously there's a little bit of a crisis of confidence sometimes, but actually, you do incredible work, and people are invested in you as well as what you're doing in terms of a festival. And it just,
Well, thank you.
I hope it goes to show just how valued you are and how much people do care about what you do, man, because it's a big part of it. So,
You get
yeah,
these nice reminders. Like we had an Essex band on at this most recent one, and
right.
they were posting the next day about how I'm the best promoter they've ever worked with, and they're posting that all over their social medias and things like that. And I'm like, you forget that you don't see other scenes, you don't see what it's like in their city all the time, unless you're on tour and you maybe even then you're scratching the surface. You're just on one bill, on one show, at one venue. You don't get a sense of what it's really like there.
Mm,
Um, and the band were amazing. They're called Frail. For any fans of like heavy hardcore beat down sort of stuff, check them out. They were really, really good. Um, and to come and play to what a room that was maybe a third full, and I only managed to give them like their fuel costs in the end to get here and back to Essex. And then to turn around and go, that's like the best promoter we've ever worked with. I'm like, oh, right, okay. Like, I haven't done too bad, Again, it's that measure of success that's important, definitely.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. And again, a testament to the work ethic, that I think a lot of people would back me up and say, it helps a lot of people, man, more than you realize. You know what I mean? And it's an example
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
that's great. I'm sure they'll come back and play soon.
yeah.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot, and again, thank you so much for sharing those with me. I could talk to you for hours. Like I say, I could sit here and do a 3 hour episode with you, but we'll
Yeah.
fine tune it, and I will ask you for your top band. I'm not going to say top three to top five. I'll give you some space,
All right.
but top bands in Hull at the moment. Bands that you love, bands you think are doing something really cool and interesting, innovative, even, and maybe some bands from the past that you miss.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, well, straight off the bat, Rothko are doing great things. Um, I know you're well aware of that already. Anyway, no one needs to tell you. But you know, all absolute scene veterans have come together and formed this new project, and you always wonder how that's going to go. When these guys from various groups in the past, that are all maybe a bit different, and they certainly were all coming from different backgrounds. Some were blues guys, some were literally hardcore punk, others were post punk, and they've all come together, and it's made something fresh and, like you say, like new and like innovative, and it's a really cool sound. But then also like surprisingly refined and just tight package. It all came together very quickly, and the early shows have like captivated audiences, and so people are coming back already. That they already have that core audience building very, very quickly, which is only going to keep growing. They've played the Adelphi, they've played the Sesh. They're ticking all the boxes off very, very early on, and yeah, they're definitely one to watch. That live session that they did for Soundsphere, absolutely awesome. They smashed that out of the park, and what that was a few months into them even being a band. Definitely ones to watch right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Got any others that you want to recommend?
So I've been listening to Earth Phantom,
Yeah,
Dan Mower's latest project. It's weird because I've been listening to that single for a while. Like they released it on Spotify maybe a month or two ago, but I swear, I remember every time I wanted to listen to it before that, it was already out, and I had to follow this like obscure link through their link tree on their Instagram page. And I don't know if it was just sending me to Bandcamp or something in the end. I can't really remember. But I'd end up with that tune in my head now and then. I'd be like, oh, like, where have I heard that? Oh, yeah, it's that Earth Phantom. So, oh, I've got to follow this link again just to listen to it. And so I'm glad that it's like sort of officially out on streaming platforms now. But yeah, like that was my only experience of them was like listening to that sort of one song for a while, and it's a really great vibe. It's sort of like um, it's got like sort of post-punk vibes to it still, but then it's like got just like a modern indie rock sort of thing going for it.
yeah,
But then the other week, I went and watched them at Sesh. They played a headline slot at the Polar Bear, and oh, it was amazing. Like it was just like it was like watching something world class. And I mean, Dan's got an amazing band behind him right now. I mean, particularly so the guitarist Tom, I've rated him as one of the best guitarists in the region for quite a while now. Because I mean, he's played in various Hull bands, but he's played in Leeds bands, he's played in Sheffield bands. Do you know what I mean? He gets around and he plays various different styles, and then with Rowan on bass, he's got such a solid band together this time. Um, I, I say that because I see it very much as like Dan's band and Dan's project. Maybe it is a lot more collaborative than I realize, but it's like off the back of his previous bands, like Earth Phantom. It's I should clarify that with him. Like, are you writing all the material or what? Because it's like maybe it is that collaborative effort
yeah,
of this amazing group of people he's got around him.
yeah.
But yeah, that show was like it blew me away. It was just so yeah, captivating again. Like I'm just stood there taking it in, and the energy, the vibe in the whole room was awesome. And it's one of those things you get. I get these funny little worries that I don't know if other people worry about, because again, maybe not. People don't always clock these things, but I'm like, Rowan's playing bass for him. He normally does the sound at Polar Bear and does an amazing job. Oh, who are they getting in on sound? What if they're great, but the sound guy's terrible? But no, the sound guy, hats off. He was fantastic as well. And
Awesome,
yeah, it
awesome.
was just that's another thing I love about Hull is people in like filling various roles like that,
Mm.
where you know like Rowan can't do the sound this week. He's got to play, but like he gets up and plays, and it's like he's an expert in both fields, and it's
Yeah,
it's just lovely to see.
very, very talented lad. Absolutely, absolutely, man.
You're right. You're right.
Four or five more questions, and then I'll let you get on with your festive season. And again, thank you very much for making the time for me, because it is always a pleasure to sit down with you.
Oh
Um,
no, it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go deep with you in a bit, because I want to talk to you about your growth as a musician before we finish up. But I do know you as quite a, like we've had some deep conversations, and I know you get overwhelmed sometimes, and I know you're a busy guy. You've always got something on. Is there anywhere you'd recommend for people in Hull to chill, like a chill spot, like somewhere that you go and you go and get in nature, for example, or you go and take some time to relax? Is there any way you would recommend somebody go if they just want to take some time to chill out and just just exist, if that makes sense. Is there anywhere like that for you that you find in Hull or the surrounding areas?
That's a good one, man. Yeah, like Pearson Park is one of those little havens for me, you know. Being by the pond, seeing the wildlife there, you know, for many years it's been just a good spot to go chill out, um, decompress a little bit. Um, you know, as for HU5, like that's probably my go-to. But I mean, as you know, I quite recently, earlier this year, I moved to Old Town, to Hull's Old Town, and what's one of the best things about that has been just being able to start every day if I want, getting out onto the marina, you know, taking a walk up to the Humber, starting my day right, you know. It's been a huge help for me, in terms of yeah, like taking a step back, having the time and the headspace to think, to plan, to focus on things like my study, which is now, you know, it's a full-time course and that's taking up an awful lot of my time. But you know, I think if I was still in the thick of it in HU5, you know, I love that place, HU5 till I die, but it's like one big never-ending party sometimes, and it's so you know, I don't think I'd be able to juggle everything quite so well if I was still sort of on the ground there. So yeah, for anyone that, you know, if you got the time, get out to Marina, you know, or up to, you know, we've got the River Humber right here. Get up to Hesel Foreshore and you know, spend a day there if you can. Little Switzerland, the little park there. I say little, it's quite big.
Yeah,
Little's in the name, but it's quite big. You know,
yeah,
we've got these spots. You know, if you see come out, Weedley Springs, just near South Cave. You know, natural freshwater springs. Um, you can cycle out there, and like I used to do it in about half an hour from Manleby Road, cycling like a madman. But you know, oh, you could get back in half an hour because it's all downhill.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Weedley Springs is another for
Good,
sure. And
good.
yeah, I think like, you know that coming back to like you know earlier you were asking about advice for maybe young people or people just getting into
Mm.
playing, promoting, recording, whatever. I think yeah, a huge piece of advice is allow yourself that time. Um, it can be easy to get caught up thinking like I can't take a minute. You know, I've got to carry on, crack on, keep working hard all the time, or else it's like all going to fall apart. And it's like no, like people don't forget you, who you are, what you've done, what you're capable of, what you've done for them, how you've helped them. People don't forget that. If you need some time for yourself, people respect that. This is something that it's like that show recently where it's like okay, third loss in over 10 years. I got all worked up about it. Like, have I just lost it? Is that it? Should I give up the ghost? You know, is that it? But no, it was the people around me that reminded me. Like, no, like what 3 times in 10 years? That is not bad going at all. Keep it up. You're doing great things. You had a miss, you know. Um, but I mean, there have been a lot of changes in my life as well, like things like uni, putting more time into that and less time into promoting. You know, it's
Yeah,
like I maybe hadn't quite realized, um, again, like every aspect of this sort of transitional period for me and like what it was going to play into. Um, so yeah, you know, but don't be too hard on yourself either. Is something that yeah, I would definitely tell anyone getting into
yeah.
live music or yeah, studio recordings or whatever. You know.
Take time for yourself. Absolutely. I remember when I
Yeah,
first came back, I was in Victoria Dock and like
yeah,
just being able to just have a walk and I was like right in front of the water and stuff. Just yeah, it's beautiful, man. Like some incredible places in Hull if people take the time. I am going to prepare you for the random fact question, so start thinking about that. Start
all
thinking
right.
about your whole random fact. I think Cannibal Animal told me about the polar bear and the whole actual Hull polar bear that existed. There was actually a zoo
Yeah.
down. So, little things like that. So get prepared for that one as I ask you this question. Um,
Okay.
so you obviously you are again associated with the music scene. Tell me about your background and how did you get here? Like, if you take me back to your younger days, how did you get to be, as I'm aware that it's me doing this and me putting this on you, but how did you get to be the musician that you are, someone that's so loved in the community? How did you start yourself on this journey, and how did it happen for you? And is it everything that you wanted it to be? If we're going to get philosophical on a Friday night.
So, well, yeah, that's going to be the harder part for sure. Because I think honestly, I never knew what to expect. Because until you find out what's going on in Hull, it's not immediately apparent a lot of the time until you kind of fall into it. But I mean, I fell in love with music in my teens. Fell in love with like getting more into like sort of the rock and punk side of things. I remember, I guess really my first favorite band was like Franz Ferdinand when they dropped that debut album on Domino, and then I started following other Domino bands. Obviously, Arctic Monkeys blew up a little while afterwards. Um, so around the same time that I was getting into loads of East Bay bands, like I fell in love with Green Day, but then subsequently found Operation Ivy and Rancid, and then like the US punk scene, which I kind of vibe with a lot more than the UK punk scene, which I'm sorry to say it is a bit of a joke a lot of the time, and that's coming from someone that's had a lot of involvement in it. Like, um, but yeah, anyway, like I was always fascinated with like how yeah a lot of these bands like I've never been into like the whole manufactured band thing. I like bands that are real and like still carry a message and that like have come from backgrounds maybe much like mine. And when I suddenly realized that yeah, like there are DIY indie bands in Hull, bands like I'm going back to like 2011 now. It shows my age, but bands like Felony on the local scene. Playing at the Adelphi. I think my first ever Adelphi gig may have been a Felony shirt. And I traveled through from Beverley. I was living in Beverley at the time, where I wasn't exposed to very much at all. But then Alan Raw's radio show, back before he did BBC Introducing, he was doing Raw Talent, and that put me on to bands like the Holy Orders and I realized like actually yeah so if I do make the effort to sort of this was MySpace days as well a lot of the time. It's like and like early Facebook days, it's like I'm gonna have to do some digging and find out like where these bands are playing. Like it was kind of like if you were in their immediate circle, it was hard to know. It really was. You couldn't just pull up their Instagram and find their listings for the next 6 months, like you can today. It was much harder. But basically, the moment that I found the Adelphi listings that Jacko used to handwrite, and then scan and print out. And you'd have these monthly listings, and all of a sudden, I start taking a chance on things like, okay, there's half a sentence here explaining what this is going to be, but I'm going to take a risk on it. It sounds like it might be interesting, and then some of those have been some of the best stuff I've ever seen. So I fell into it kind of that way, but also through Darren Bunting and his shows at Ringside. Back before he had O'Reilly's at Ringside, when he was booking a lot of the metal stuff, like I knew this band from Driffield that were playing between Sharky's in town and Ringside, and just started sort of like going along to shows with them, and they played festivals around the region and stuff as well. But then, starting through their shows, starting to meet people that played in other bands, other genres, and just started branching out a bit more and discovering more about the whole scene.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that obviously led to where you are now, which is again, it's really cool. So if you were to go back, and I will just squeeze this one in because yeah, again, I could take up so much more of your time, but I will limit it to three more questions. Like, what would you say to your younger self now then, if like looking back, like Casey that was hopeful, that was in Beverly and trying to find a scene, trying to find his people. to, of course, now someone that is very much the center of a community and of a scene, I would say. What would you say to your younger self now if you could kind of talk to your younger self, as it were?
Ooh, don't bother going to Beverly. Don't bother with college. Stay in Hull. And no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like, I guess with the benefit of hindsight, I'd be like, look, this thing's gonna happen, right? It's called social media. You kind of know about it now, but it's gonna be both, your greatest asset and a thorn in your side. It's going to allow you to reach a much like wider range of people than ever before, and get your message out and your ideas out, get your art out there. But at the same time, you're going to have to deal with kind of the oversaturated market that comes with that. And I'd have been like, because growing up, like sort of like in my teens and then early 20s, and seeing social media evolve into what it is today, you can never quite predict what the next thing's going to be. Like, I think even now we like to think, all right, yeah, TikTok's just smashed it out of the park, and that's what it's going to be from now on. But it's like, no, there's like you know, a huge school of thought, even sort of talking about how that's a really bad platform for creators, and like then there are all sorts of other issues with it. It's in like, I think like the US federal court is trying to shut it down, and like I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but it's like you can still never predict what the next thing's going to be. So I think I'd tell myself that. I'd tell myself you've got to be on board with it to a degree. You have to do it. It's becoming one of those necessary evils. I think it has been for a long time, but don't get too caught up on it either. For the longest time, I was still printing posters for every single show, like physical posters for every single show, and doing
Yeah,
poster runs around the city, or
I think I
paying
remember
Jess,
some of that.
who,
Yeah, like yeah,
yeah, or
yeah.
paying Jess, who is someone, she's probably had a shout out on this podcast before. She's that
That's amazing. Yeah,
that important.
I go a long way back with Jess. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Mm.
but Jess doing her poster runs around the city, getting absolutely everywhere, making sure your events are known about. It's incredibly important people like that are at the heart of this scene, really. But like again, I was doing all these traditional, like I guess old school ways of promoting now. All right, maybe every event gets a poster still made for it, but a lot of the time, whether that will actually see a physical print, who's to say? Some shows, some audiences, you get the word out on social media, and suddenly the tickets are flying, and it's like, oh well, it's the 30 quid that I could spend on the poster run. Well, that's halfway to paying the opening band. Do you know what I mean? So it's yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Adapting and learning.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'd have definitely told myself that, like, be prepared for social media, get on board with it, utilize it. But yeah, again, like it's not the be all and end all.
Right.
Like judge everything on a case by case basis, because I think that's something that like it took me a long time to figure out, like how to best utilize social media whilst also like alongside some of the more old school methods and traditional methods of promoting, which are still very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good lesson for anybody checking this out. Those methods still work, and again, create a community around them,
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so we got to the last two then, Casey. This is the difficult one that catches a lot of people off guard. Weird or interesting fact about Hull that you wish other people knew?
Just about Hull or about Hull music?
Hull music or both?
Oh, I have been thinking about this in the back of my mind, and I've come up with nothing.
It always catches everybody off
Yeah,
guard. I started doing it and just doing it and just asking, and it became very clear that I needed to warn people
yeah,
about it. So
and
yeah,
that's it. Since you warned me, I have been thinking, and it's like, oh God, a random fact about Hull.
something that would interest people to know about it.
All right. You know the whole thing about KCOM? That's always fascinated me. And all right, I better go on the record as saying I don't know how much truth there is to this because it gets a little bit conspiratorial and it gets a little bit like. So I'm not putting this out as fact, but things I've heard are very interesting. I've seen some corroboration a good
Okay.
while ago. Maybe dig it out. But you know the whole thing about KCOM and why KCOM exists.
Tell me about
And
it.
right, so during was it World War Two? I think it was, yeah, World War Two. Hull was so important to the war effort, um, being, you know, a, a port, um, a gateway to Europe. It was so important for that and other reasons to the war effort that if the national grid went down due to bombings, the national phone lines, not the power grid, but like the phone lines went down, it was essential that Hull stayed up and had its communications set up, which is why KCOM was Kingston Communications, was initially set up to ensure that, like, yeah, communication could still go on, Hull could do its thing in the war effort.
Wow.
And apart, so here's the random fact side that, like, I will verify one day. I want to find out one way or the other whether this is true. Apparently, because it was so important to the war effort, when Kingston Communications was set up, it was um, it was essentially given like national intelligence status because that's what it was doing. It was doing national intelligence. Now, for the longest time before all these like broadband, wireless broadband services came to Hull, KCOM still owned all the phone lines in Hull. If you wanted to go with another internet service provider, you still had to pay KCOM for the line rental and things like that. Now, I'll always remember the conversation. I had a conversation with a chap. I won't name him or anything, but he was telling me that KCOM is still a national intelligence agency to this day, and that they use Hull and KCOM to experiment with like data collection and with the, you know what I mean? Like it's got this
Yeah.
isolated little thing. Because when you think
Wow.
about it, yeah, the foundation of the formation of the internet and then broadband was a hell of a long time after World War Two. Like before it was in your average household. And again, I can't verify any of this, but it's interesting that, like, yeah, why were we not back on like the national thing by then? Like,
Yeah.
if KCOM had served its purpose, do you know what I mean? And the national phone lines were like there. What was the point after this whole, like, after the war effort? We won the war, didn't we? Like why have we still got this, like, this separate system? And yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of questions around that. People were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's a monopoly," like, and it's like, yeah, well, why is that being allowed then?
Yeah.
Are there alternative?
That's
Yeah,
interesting,
are there
isn't it?
alternative motives? Is there something going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, because people
I
always
think it's
ask
quite
me,
palpable.
yeah, people's always ask me why have we got, why have we got this separate thing? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Why is it standalone
yeah,
compared to other
and that's it.
parts
I
of the
feel like we
country?
have half the answer. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, there is an answer, there is a reason, and the reason is the war. But then it's like, okay, why we still got it?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
don't.
yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, we're tapping into a very conspiratorial side of me, and again, I'm not putting any of that out there as fact, but like
if it's interesting. Yeah, well, you see, if anybody knows the
random
answer,
facts about Hull.
yeah, exactly. If anybody knows the answer, do get in touch
Yeah,
and
yeah.
drop
There
it
you
in
go.
the comments.
Random half fact about Hull for you. There you go.
There you go. Thanks, Casey. Well, thank you so much for making the time for me today. I really, really appreciate it, man. It's always a good time to catch up with you anyway, and
Yeah,
really appreciate you
absolutely, man.
sharing me your knowledge. Is there
It's
anything
been great.
as we wind up? Is there anybody you would like to shout out? Anybody you've got bandmates, you've got friends, you've got people all over the city that care about you and love you. Is there anyone you want to shout out? As we finish up today.
I don't know. I think more than like a shout out to anyone specifically, I'd just like to thank everyone. Like, I think it's everyone's important to it. When I say everyone, you know who you are. Everyone that helps me out, because there are so many people. I get a lot of support, thankfully, from the people around me. Yeah, from my band, from you know people involved at the Adelphi, and they know who they are. I don't feel like, because if I started shouting people out, it'd just take too long, man. We would be here all day. But yeah, like I just want to thank everyone for all the help, supporting the shows, whether it's just coming, whatever. Like that's great. That's it. All I can ask for.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thank you for the time, man. I look
And
forward to
you get the
it.
biggest thanks.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. Honestly, as I've said before, and I won't say it too many more times, I got the no end of respect for you, man. And I know from conversations I've had with other individuals, there's a lot of love for you in the scene. And I hope that on those days where you do struggle for
Well, you too.
motivation,
You too, bro. You
oh
know
man, that means a lot. But like, yeah, man. Again, thank you. And I've wanted to do this. I actually wanted to do this before I even started this thing. You were like one of the main people I wanted to get on. So we got there eventually.
that. Done
And
it.
yeah, nice
It's
one,
been
man.
great.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks so much. Lots of love, mate.